You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
I feel like we need to do like a bigger check-in on everybody, how everybody's doing. But I want to do the QB stock game on Wednesday. I know Cerruti knows it. Kyle, don't be worried. It'll be very easy, but we're bringing that sucker back. And then I think we should do the take stock on the takes. I think we need to do those, and we'll do them after week 1 of the NFL season, Cerruti. What do you think?
Like only NFL, or are you talking like everything from when we did it until summer, through summer? Because I feel like we've had a couple of weeks, even months of some stuff that we might need to get some stock, some IPOs or whatever it's called, get those out there.
Yeah, the Florio should, like if Cam Newton ended up with the Buccaneers as the ultimate middle finger to Brady, that one, they wouldn't even let you short it. They would just be like, sorry, like you can't. Like we can't even assign a dollar value to that because there'd be no one that would ever buy that. It's not even a penny stock. So we didn't really come up with a great pricing model for it. We had a few people jump in. I just want to make it simple because this is fake. Whereas QB stock game, it's not fake. That's real. But there's usually always, when I put together the stock prices for the quarterbacks, maybe we'll do it Friday. I don't know. I got to make sure I give myself enough time to go through it and do it for all the eligible QBs. But there was usually, when I would do it each year, there was always like a number that would jump out. Basically, what I would do is I would look at your stats. There was a very simple formula. I love when people have these things. I'll hear, I'm not going to name any names, but there'll be some people that'll be like, oh, well, based on my preparation, I was able to figure this out. And it's like, didn't you just like divide a yardage differential? Like, well, I don't think it was that big of a deal. Easy, Matt Damon. But we just took QBR and we divided it. And then I added in a win-loss, differential that was pretty simple. And the prices actually played out pretty well, but there's usually always like 1 or 2 QBs. You're like, okay, that price is way too low. Like I automatically am going to make money because whatever he was that previous year, that's not what's going to happen this year. But whatever, it's fun. You can play along with it, but it's different than the takes. But you're right. Like, let's put the takes in a file, Cerruti, and then, I'm just going to figure out something. We'll just look, that doesn't have to be a real dollar amount thing. We can just look at it weeks later and say, hey, that was a good buy. That was a bad one or whatever. But I don't want to make it as simple as just buy or sell because that's been done a million different times, although it's not entirely different. But we're just going to be making fun of some of the takes out there. All right. Are we all on the same page with that?
Yeah. I think, we got revamped first take too. So we might have some new stuff throughout the season that we do have dive into.
We do have revamp first. I can't wait until the NBA season has a headline. We get Tebow on for an hour on a Friday. And I like Tebow. I do, but
Tebow breaking down Luka Doncic's weight.
Yeah, that'll be the end of my opinions on that one. What else do we have here? Oh, we got to do a North Water thing. And then I know a lot of you guys want to go abroad again, but the last couple F1 series, like not a ton of suspense from it. I mean, they had 2 laps. I mean, you want to talk about a UCLA type tweet. Check out Williams' team where they took a podium with 2 laps. It was raining. They ran 2 laps and it was over. And they had the entire Williams team dumping champagne on each other on an Instagram post. Now, if you know anything about F1, clearly you do if you listen to this podcast. Williams has not had a great run of it the last few years. But, I mean, hell, at least UCLA won the game.
Would that be like the 12th man on an NBA bench just going after it and like lifting the trophy after an NBA championship? Like, what's the equivalent of that? Because he still won, so you should celebrate, right? But like, was it actually a real win? Like, how much
he didn't win?
Contribute?
Though. He didn't. It was a podium. So,
still all right. So but it's still an accomplishment that he would never otherwise have.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be. It kind of feels a little bit like, what was it, Phoenix, who went 8-0 in the bubble? But I don't want to hear like, oh, hey, that set the template for everything else. Getting Chris Paul set the template for everything else. So that's just a play the result thing. Like if a team loses in the first round and they come back and, go deeper in the playoffs next year, you'd be like, them getting swept 3-0 last year was really, we play the results on that stuff a lot. But the F1, it's hard to explain how weird that would be. They didn't really even run the race, but they did. And so we weren't going to do a big deal on that. But I guess that kid Russell's going to end up with Mercedes anyway. So that's
okay for him. There you go.
Yeah. But that was going to happen anyway. We'll have Clark he's better at it than we are, clearly. No one would say otherwise. All right, life advice. lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Okay, investment ideas. Oh, this will go over well. 185 centimeters, 81 kilograms. All right, cool. Expat living in Japan, married a local, 3 boys, 10, 5, and 1. No fear of anyone I know hearing this. Oh, I thought he was just saying straight up, I don't fear anyone. Next topic. No fear of anyone I know hearing this, as I've been 19 years and I've been here 19 years and none of my friends speak English. Quick, Kyle, if you could speak any foreign language, what would it be and go?
Farsi.
Okay. Didn't expect that. Kind of makes sense. Why Farsi?
You said quick. I don't know. It was, I actually was going to go with like, I don't know, Mandarin or Japanese or something, but you said quick and you kind of already were on the Japan corner with this email. So I said Farsi.
Do you know anyone that speaks that? Do you think you'd be able to use it?
Yeah, a couple Arab friends and their parents. I feel like they're probably talking about me when I'm like the white guy hanging around the house, but I never know. So I would like to speak Farsi.
That is a Persian language. Modern day Iran, Afghanistan. You could be an international liaison. Try to help us through some of this stuff, Kyle.
Yeah, I like it on this part of the world over here.
He just wants to use the eavesdrop on people.
Yeah.
That's it. It's on brand.
Is it offensive to say when I see Taliban videos that I'm like, individually, I think I could take a couple?
I don't think that's offensive. No, I mean, you can size anybody up from any walk of life.
Yeah. I understand their challenges are a little different. They're probably fighting with a different level of inspiration. But when I watched that, I'll admit, when I saw the Taliban overtake, I mean, it's an awful story, but when I saw them overtake that gym in somebody's house and watch them work out, I was like, I could probably get 2 of them before I'd be overwhelmed. Well, it was just a thought. All right, back to the email. Anyway, the point of the matter is my grandmother died, left me $100,000 US. Currently, we're renting and my wife wants to buy a house. The problem is, despite the fact that we live in one of the cheaper preferences in Japan, she wants to live in the most expensive part of our city. We're talking $400K for a 3-bedroom place. She's a stay-at-home mom. I'm a foreigner. I can't get a loan from the bank until I get permanent residency. I've applied for it, though, and should get it, but the process will be about another 9 months. During that time, the $100K is just sitting in my U.S. checking account. I'd like to make a little off of it before it disappears. Maybe less than the amount we have to borrow. Any advice for a 9-month investment? My first thing would be, don't email me about this, but I can give you a little bit of common sense here on a few things. If I had $1 for every time it's like, hey, I want to do this, but my wife wants this house, I mean, it's just overwhelming. I think we all have to admit, some of us have, I don't know if there's a nesting instinct there. And let's just try not to turn this into, a guy's saying this, but it's endless. It's endless how many times the guy will say, I'm not saying there aren't men that also want to spend money on houses when the female's a little more prudent about the money, but it seems to be, whatever that ratio it seems to be higher on the female side, where the guy will be like, hey, this is our current situation, but my wife wants this. So here's the deal. From what I've learned is, whatever it is that your wife wants is probably what you're going to end up doing. Now, here's the scary part. When you start talking in like practical numbers of, hey, I'd like to borrow less. So say you're taking a $300,000 loan. The likelihood that you're going to make like another 50 grand here in 9 months while exposing that money to the kind of risk that would take on that kind of return is why you shouldn't do any of this stuff. I mean, take it out of your checking account and talk to somebody who really understands some of these short term, but the priority here is safe investments where, you're not even going to be making on that math 10%. Like in a 9-month deal. And again, I don't know all the products. This isn't something that I never profess to understand this world enough, but I do know what it's like to have your money exposed when you're thinking about a big investment. When the stock market went to shit during the beginning of COVID, I, like a lot of other people, were like, all right, well, some of these things are just ridiculously priced, and started buying up stuff. But I also knew that I was doing a real estate deal. So every time you're looking at it, going like, oh, look what it did today. Oh, it's recovering. I'm so smart. And then you're like, holy shit. If we have another downturn, which is entirely possible, yet it's only doubled since then, but it was possible. We don't know. None of us know. I mean, it's like the gambler who tells you he never loses. Never talk to him again, right? My point would be this house is likely the most important purchase you've ever made in your life. You have a wife and 3 kids that are depending on you here. So the number one priority is not thinking, hey, how do I turn 100K into 150 so that I'm borrowing less? It should be, how can I make anything off this 100,000, which you're not going to make in a checking account? How can I make anything here where I'm not exposing the money to, I have to go to my wife and say, hey, I lost half of it. All right. Because then you're screwed, especially when you're talking about having enough in the bank. Not only is the down payment, but the carry, where most banks, and I don't understand how it works over there, but I imagine it's pretty similar, where they're going to want to know how long you could carry a payment without work if things went bad, which is a year, year and a half, something like that, depending on the purchase price of the house. Maybe it wouldn't be as bad for a purchase price around 400,000. So I get your point, and it's awesome that you're like, hey, how can I do this? But having money in a market and going to bed and then waking up and having that money not there is a really shitty feeling. And it's going to be even worse if that money is already spent on something this important. So the only advice I can give you isn't products or here's this investment. This is not, what is it, Dave Holmes? This is not the Dave Holmes show. But I know as I was sitting there having money that was attached to other stuff that was really volatile during COVID, where I'm like, oh, I have this much money for a down payment on something new. I could have fucked that up in a huge way. The only difference is I wasn't going to have anybody yell at me. So that was that. And then I remember being like, hey, dude, what are you doing? Like, don't make this mistake. Like, how are you going to feel if all this paperwork and the realtors and you're putting in an offer on something and then you're like, oh, hey, sorry, man, Tesla got wiped out. Can't buy a house now. So that's the only advice that I would have. Kyle?
I actually got more of a question than any advice to give.
I don't even know if I can answer it. You know, I mean, I'm very remedial.
I think you can. So say I have a similar grandma situation. And
are you going to kill your grandmother?
Let's say she pulled me aside and said, fuck these people. Like, you're going to run all this shit when it's over. Let's say that happened.
Yeah.
And so also, let's say she has like a 150-year-old house that I would never move into in a million years. But
your tone is scaring. This tone is very specific, and it's scaring me. I just want that.
It scared me too. No. I actually asked her. I was like, "Hey, are you like planning something here?" She's like, "No. I just wanted to get this stuff out of the way. You know, I don't see you that often. X, Y, Z." So I guess what I'm saying is, let's say you have 100,000 US, like this guy says. Do you really put, and you want a house that's like $350,000 or something? Do you literally put every single dollar of that $100,000 down? Because that's like what makes sense.
I wouldn't.
No way.
I mean, look,
go ahead.
This is a philosophical thing. The way money is right now, and everybody that's like, oh, the rates can't go any lower, and then they just keep going lower and lower and lower. I would rather have cash to either do other things or no. Like, some people are different. Some people hate the idea of a car payment. When I did or didn't have money, I didn't care. I would rather have the stockpile and have that in my account. And then if it meant a little bit more over time, fine. But some people hate the payment. Some people hate the idea but when interest is the way it is right now, I would rather have that cushion than giving them every dollar that they want. But, you know, look, the first house I ever bought, you go through the mortgage process, which unfortunately just happens a lot. And it's not always great. You think you're at the finish line. You never are. And then it's like, hey, you know what? Instead of 20% down, we'd love like 25% down. And, you know, depending on where you are in your life, like 20 and 25% can be a huge deal. It can. I mean, even, you know, it wasn't a huge purchase for me, meaning total price point, but it was a huge purchase for me because that's what it was at that time. And so I've talked to other people that do it differently. You know, some people just straight up pay cash. If you can do that, great, go ahead and do it. I think that the way money is and how cheap it is, unless you're so flush with cash. But again, some people just hate the idea of a bigger payment. They're like, I'd rather the payment lower. I'm borrowing less. So over time, I'm paying less. But I look at it as whatever house I've lived in, I'm not living in it for 30 years. This isn't my retirement home. I'm not paying it off. And then that's my retirement. I'm giving it to my kid. You know what I mean? Like, whenever you're looking at mortgage products, as much as you could say, well, hey, how much principal am I paying down? What is my payment? What is my interest? What's the full 30-year calculator on this? You know, you look at those and you're like, oh, no wonder banks do so well. And again, for other people that are in it, they're like, this isn't that interesting. But the first time you do it, you're like, wait a minute. Oh, okay. That's why the economy works the way it does. I just think when the interest or excuse me, the interest rate is what it is. I would try to find a way to put down the minimum down payment. I mean, not talking like 5% down like they used to do like that's why the mortgage crisis thing was so fucked, is you not only were lending to people that couldn't afford and have given you no financial track record that they could pull off what they were doing, but then you would also have the interest rate go to an insane number, and they were letting people do this with like 5% down, I don't know, 0 down in some cases. And I mean, you say it retroactively, like, oh no shit, that didn't work. But yeah, I mean, long answer here, Kyle, sorry. I personally feel that way. Others disagree. So
yeah, because I know somebody like my dad would be like, oh, just set yourself up and put as much down as you can because that makes sense. But like in my head and other people I've asked were like, no, don't do that. I'm somewhere in the middle. So who knows?
Okay,
it's all
depends.
hypothetical.
Like if you're on a budget, yeah,
Definitely on a budget.
Okay, but so say, like I'll just run through the numbers. I bought a condo 10 years ago in Connecticut for $417,000. All right, and I put 25% down because they came back at the very last minute. They're like, oh, let's get 25% into this guy. All right. So I put down the 25%. At that point, it's kind of like, close to my life savings plus whatever I had left over for the carry that I was talking about. Because they're not going to let you write a check for $125,000 and have $40 in your bank account and then give you a house. All right. Like you still have to have cash to cover the payment the rest of the way. So I refinanced it, I think once, but the payment, and this is like with property taxes and everything else in there, off of that down payment and everything else was, I think, $2,100. All right. It was around there. So forgive me if the math is a little off. It was a long time ago. So it was about $2,100, I think, on the initial part, maybe 22, something like that. If I had done 50% down and then the payment was like $1,600 or $1,300, again, I'm just doing this sort of off the top of my head and I know it's wrong, but just to ballpark it, at that point, what the job was to then go, all right, you're going to get 200,000 down, which I didn't even have. Now, oh wow, but this means every month I'm saving another $600. The $600 based on what I was making then at that point wasn't going to change that much of what my routine was. And that's just what you have to figure out. Now at that point, I was lucky that the $600 was going to make or break me every single month, like it definitely would have at other times in my life. But that's where I go, why would I want to give you another 80,000 up front to save 600 each month, not only in cash for each month, but then the long-term part of it, which is an important point to part of. But I knew I wasn't going to live in the house in Connecticut beyond, I had it a lot longer than I ever thought I could because I couldn't sell it forever because Connecticut screwed up the property tax so much. So, there you go.
I think that actually helped.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I know with any of this stuff, it's just, there's going to be some people that are like, yeah, you nailed it. And they're going to be like, no, this is what, whatever. The beginning of the email is find somebody else better than your sports talk show host to give you a stable 9-month investment. But I'm telling you, if you think like you're going to get some sort of 25% return on something in 9 months, you might. But what are you going to do? Go buy stocks right now and day trade for a little while? And then you're going to tell your family, hey, guess what? Hey, guess what, guys? All right, here we go. Guys are still chiming in about the pull-up thing. It's never ending. We had somebody chime in and say flat bench press is to decline as Kipling pull-up is to strict pull-up. He reversed those. So he's saying decline is the same as Kipling. I don't know one person who has ever said, hey, here are my decline numbers, ignoring their flat. If you do that, don't go outside.
Ooh.
Keep it moving. All right, this is a good one. It's titled Struggling Host / Stoner. 27, Melbourne. Huge in Australia and New Zealand. I want to get your thoughts. 187.62. Steven Adams level screen setter. Had to wrap up a game of 4-4 pickup because a guy ate it on one of my screens and had to go home. He was down for like 5 minutes. I heard a crunch. Swear to God, I was stationary the whole time. Maybe take it a little easy on some of your pickup hoop screens. If that's
is that something to brag about? I don't know.
Nah, I played with this guy who was like an old school player, and he used to just level us on these fucking screens. And it was bad because I was in high school and he was like a grown up and a teacher. And I remember he did it to me a couple times, and I was like, hey, cut the shit. Like, what are we doing here? And then when anybody would do that, I would make sure the first time they went to set a screen on me, I didn't care about defending the player. I would run into them as hard as I fucking could. To just be, and again, back then, I probably didn't even feel it, but something I carried over. If somebody sets screens like this on you in a pickup game and you know what's going to happen, don't even give up the basket. Just
be a fullback.
Put your shoulder right into his chest cavity And I'm telling you, they're not going to set the screen as hard on you after that. Don't say anything either. Just do it. Know what you're doing. And then it was like when Chauncey Billups drove on this guy that was trying to like pick him up 3/4 court in an ESPN pickup game. And Chauncey was like, yeah, I'll run with you guys a little bit. And the guy like decided he was going to take the belt from Chauncey Billups, this guy in video. And the thing you don't realize, like how physical the NBA game is to get any sort of space. Like Chauncey put his shoulder right into this kid and the kid made a noise. And Chauncey obviously scored on him immediately. And that was what's great. It's like Chauncey wasn't dribbling to get past you or away from you. He was like, oh, I'm going to dribble through you. And I'm going to teach you a little lesson here. And the kid did not pick up Chauncey 3/4 court the rest of that game. Were you there for that one, Cerruti?
No, but I have a question for you. Who is worse in a pickup game? Guy who sets hard, legal, but hard screens, or the guy who's constantly trying to draw charges?
If you draw a charge in a pickup game, I'm playing. Like I'll just
You're out. We're good.
I've yelled. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't. I mean, I still don't. And I'm not like I've been playing a ton over the last couple of years, but in all the years I did it, but whenever anybody did it, most people knew. Like I've even said, like, you're calling fucking charges. Like, how about like, what do you know? And sometimes you do something in the post, it gets a little physical, and then the kid will go, charge? And I just be like, no. And then you just walk to the other end of the court. If people are calling charges in your pickup games, you just need to, everybody not respect the call and walk to the other end. All right, so back to our guy who's a stoner setting tough screens here. Checking in my transition away from animation. Okay, that's his full-time work, animating internal trading vids. All right, we'll maybe not put all of this in there. He's not enjoying it. He's moving more into hosting and presenting. The only problem is sometimes I smoke too much weed. I do want to host pot-adjacent shows, like shows about skateboarding, tattooing, and video games, and maybe later in the future, shows like The Amazing Race. I have a full-sleeve geeky tattoo and silver hair, so the aesthetic matches. Cerruti, you love this guy. How close were you to getting silver hair?
I've actually, not silver, but I thought about doing like the cool soccer player look where you bleach it and then you kind of let it grow in. You got like the dark undertones and then you got the bleached top hair. I thought about it several times, but haven't pulled the trigger yet.
I'd say,
and then sleeve.
yes.
I've wanted to sleeve forever. I just don't know what to get. So this guy is living my dream. I don't really smoke as much as he does, so it's all good.
Yeah, I never thought that about you. Actually, this is as you said, not as much as this guy at all. I'm actually a little surprised. We've never talked about it, but we'll leave. You know, I don't know if we're to the point where everybody's supposed to start
We'll leave
talking
it a
about
mystery. It's fine.
Yeah. Mystery Steve. I also do a bit of stand-up on the side. Okay. The only problem is I'm noticing I'm getting heavier because I get high. I get too high and eat too much chocolate. And I think it makes me a bit slower. However, I'm a bit of a differentiator from other people in a positive way. I've been getting opportunities in hosting, presenting in these areas, partly because of this. I feel it adds an edge. Weed is still illegal here. So wait, so he thinks he's edgy weed guy and he's getting jobs because of it? Just wanted to know what you would do if you were me. Should I ease up or should I see where it takes me? As it seems that both positive and negative. There's also a place in the Australian media landscape for the Seth Rogen of Australia, and I could fit it. Cheers. He said when we're down under, we all rip a cone together, Kyle.
Love to. That's
How do you
cigarettes,
feel about
right?
that? No, I'm imagining.
No
that's,
cones. Yeah, that's a joint.
cone.
Yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
that too.
All right. Old guy alert happening. All right. Look, I'm not anti-weed. I just never was that into it at all. I lived with a bunch of guys who could not function unless they had it. Despite the social acceptance of it, I still think there's probably some dudes where it's like, hey, it's legal. It's like, there's a lot of shit that's legal that shouldn't run your life. And in this case, you know, I mean, look, whether it's you listening right now and you know, or other guys, like the day can't start until they get high. And then they would say, oh, I have anxiety. All right, so you're just going to be stoned the rest of your life. So if you think it's making you get fat and eat too much food, then I think you're on the right path, though, for the Seth Rogen part of it. I don't know the Australian comedy market, believe it or not. I still feel like in 2021, Kyle, you're going to help me with this. Do you think like, hey, that guy's pretty good? Do you know he takes weed? Like, yeah. Yeah. Let's give him a show.
Sign him up.
He does alcohol too.
So Um, I would just say this to anybody: like, if you think it's interfering, which I don't know, this struggle seems to be that he thinks being a stoner is opening up avenues, which I think has to be a bit of an exaggeration. Are you still funny if you're doing stand up? Are you funnier with it or without it? Is the reason you can get out there because of it? Like, that's why so many of these rock bands, it takes 20 years and they have to sober up because they felt like they had to be drunk on stage the whole time. And it's also, I think a lot of these famous people that have drug and alcohol problems, a lot of it has to do with the schedule. Like, they don't have to be up at 8 or 9 most of the time, like the rest of us. So it's like, hey, it's Tuesday, I'm just going to go out. But you're still young. You're thinking about it. I mean, I don't want to make it as simple as maybe you don't have to smoke all the time, but you're just going to get to a point where you either realize it is the priority of your day, which it probably shouldn't be, or you're going to think, hey, recreationally, like it helps me. And maybe that's not the biggest deal. Maybe that part's not the biggest deal. I just think there really shouldn't be anything other than your kids that takes over your life.
That's a great call.
Kyle?
I would say a couple things. I surprisingly have a couple thoughts on this. One, if you're like wake and baking, I found that like that's just whack. And like you don't even know that it's whack until you stop doing it. So maybe like don't do that. The other thing, if you're worried about getting heavy, I was always wondering, I even just Googled this a minute ago because I didn't want to sound like an idiot. When you smoke weed, I think it changes your metabolic rate. That's metabolisms, right?
Yep.
So what if you tried to smoke weed and not eat chocolate? That's like a cheat code, isn't it? Like you're raising your metabolism, but you're not putting any shit in there. And then, you're like two birds, one stone. You're getting high and you're also maybe doing the opposite of getting fat.
I'm surprised you said that because that's like a huge, like, oh, hey, just be high and don't eat chocolate. That's like telling somebody who smokes, okay, I want to quit. But when you have 6 or 7 beers, don't smoke cigarettes. Like,
is it though? Is it the same though?
No, I'm not saying cigarettes are the same as chocolate or chocolate's as dangerous as cigarettes. But what I'm saying is that
tell me cigarettes is better than chocolate right now because I want to feel that.
Just
say it for me.
No, but what I'm saying is that the reason, any of this stuff is because it either calms you or it makes you feel a way that you like to feel. But at the same time, too, it also impacts the decisions. So to just say, hey, be really high, but now don't like chocolate, that's a big ask.
It's also habitual,
right?
If
you're getting heavier and you'd rather not work out because there's like just more fun stuff to do, isn't that sort of like, at least you don't have to run, just don't eat chocolate. Maybe your maybe drink a little water with lemon juice in it. I think that's a metabolism thing. Maybe you just start doing like all the metabolism stuff and not have to do the workout stuff, and then maybe you won't be as heavy.
What happened to my Kyle? You're telling me get really high and then do the cayenne lemon water honey fasting drink.
Well, it's not fasting. I'm not saying don't eat at all. I'm just saying like don't like, I don't know, get the crunch bar or whatever.
Good calories only.
Yeah. I'm just saying you could do it as like instead of working out. This is like for lazy people. Like I'm one of those people.
Here's my summary on this. Stu, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I'm equally surprised as Kyle. I think it's easy to say, hey, don't eat chocolate when you're high, but when you're high, you're going to eat chocolate. So I don't think that you're in a loop here that's never going to be solved.
Right. It's like people that get hammered, you want Chinese food. Like, oh, okay. Well, now just keep getting hammered. It's cool, but just do not want Chinese food.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Problem solved. Yeah. When I'm hammered, I'll just rationalize it. I'll think perfectly and I'll make good decisions. That'll happen. It's
like getting drunk in college and not ordering Domino's. Like, wow, that's just every Saturday, Friday night, whatever the night was, you get Domino's when you're drunk because that's what you do. And yeah, it's not great for you, but it's just a habit.
Getting hammered is a lot of work, though. This definitely has to be food involved. That's all I'm saying.
That's different. Yeah,
toking a joint.
That's different. I would ask anyone that's doing this because the weed push of the last few years, I think, has made people think like, all right, cool, it's legal, like none of it matters. But like you can't just drink and go to work. Okay. And that's been legal for a long time too. It's just a lot harder to hide. I would ask anybody that's like even asking themselves this question as it relates to the emailer. If you think it is kind of running your day, then, maybe you got to wean yourself off it a little bit. If you think it's getting in the way of your work, then that's a problem. If you don't think it's getting in the way of your work, I'm sure there's a lot of guys who are stoned all the time, listen to us. We're like, hey, I do this. I work with computers. I'm at home all the time. I'm more efficient. It doesn't matter. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm not telling you you're wrong. But it's up to every person to decide if you're even asking these questions. It's like that episode of Mad Men where Don Draper says, he goes, the minute you have to ask if you have a drinking problem, you have a drinking problem, right? And so I think if this is something where you are like going, hey, I didn't do this, I didn't come through with this, I sort of blew this off, on and on and on, and you're 27, then, you know, whatever. But these are you kind of have to go through some shit. But I don't even know that that's what this guy is saying. I don't know that it's dire. I think he's just sort of in the middle here. But if he wants to be Seth Rogen, he just needs to get higher and eat more chocolate, right?
I think Seth Rogen's funny not because he smokes weed. And if you think that's why he's funny, then you're probably wrong to this guy.
That struck a nerve right there.
No, I mean, I listen to like a lot of comedians podcasts and not a lot of them, but there's a couple that I listen to and they're just like, you know, like, yeah, I had a Coke problem, but I wouldn't go on stage doing Coke because like comedy was important to me. And like, you know, it threw me off. But like, you should, like, if you're funny, it sounds like you're funny. Like you should focus on being funny without, added things in there. So if you are,
but
funny,
sometimes it helps. But sometimes it helps, right?
But if you're having an existential question about whether or not it's going to help me do better, it's probably not. You should focus on being better, like regularly.
The other thing Don Draper could have asked himself is like, hey, if you're drinking brown water at 9 a.m. at work, that might be more of an issue.
Yeah, he never asked that question.
I just saw the episode where Don Draper goes, they win the Clio. Remember, they get hammered because they don't think they have to meet the people from Life Cereal. And then the people from Life Cereal show up. So they get hammered at the commercial awards, advertisement awards. Then they have to go back to the office. He pitches the Life Cereal thing, shit-faced. That was the other kid's tagline, cure for the common everything. And then he goes out again with Roger and Joan. He goes home with the brunette. And then he wakes up to Betts calling him saying, you're 2 hours late. You haven't picked up the kids. And he's like, whatever, it's Saturday. And she's like, it's Sunday. And he rolls over and it's the waitress from a diner. He missed a day and went to bed on a Friday and woke up on a Sunday with a different person than he went to bed with on Friday and missed an entire day. That is a lot. That's hopefully we don't have any emailers suggesting that timeline. All right, that'll do it. We'll be back on. We got a lot of stuff going on Wednesday and Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, please subscribe, rate, and review Ryen Russillo Podcast, Ringer, and Spotify. Thanks to Kyle and Steve, as always.